There's increasing concern that the use of weight loss and diabetes medications such as Wegovy, Ozempic, and Zepbound are being used to such an extent that they're leading to a significant loss of muscle mass. We learn more from Dr. Amit Shah of the Department of Internal Medicine at Mayo Clinic, Arizona. Doctor, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. This is really interesting. Basically, first of all, these particular drugs, what exactly do they do?
Yeah, so these medications were initially invented as diabetes medications, and they've been phenomenal. There were older ones that were modestly effective, but these new ones, semaglutide and tirzepatide, those are the generic names for these brand names, are very, very effective in inducing weight loss in people, helping their diabetes out. And then once they noticed that, oh, these are great weight-reducing medications, they sought additional FDA approval for now being used for weight loss in non-diabetic patients.
But do they do something? What do they do to the pancreas, and what do they do to insulin to be so effective?
Yeah, so they have a couple of mechanisms, slightly different for the two medications, but they improve one of the hormones that helps your body to process insulin a little bit better. In terms of insulin sensitivity. It also slows down the gut, slows down digestion, which is part of one of the side effects, which can be like constipation or inability for your stomach to work properly. And so it makes people feel fuller, longer, and the pounds just kind of melt off, as my patients like to say.
Yeah, they melt off to the point where now there's a concern they're melting off too much here. Loss of muscle mass. Again, how does that equation work between these medications and loss of muscle mass?
Yeah, so I think everybody would love to have medications that would only take away fat and nothing else, right? Keep us as strong and as vibrant as we are, but all you would lose is fat and look great, right? The problem is that all of these medications, you lose non-fat mass also. So things like skeletal muscle, other tissues, etc. And the worry is that we haven't done enough studies, particularly since I'm a geriatrician, in older patients, about what happens when people lose muscle mass. At minimum, it's about 25% muscle mass loss, and in some studies, maybe even as much as 40 to 60% of that non-fat mass that's lost is muscle.
Compare that to you just telling the patient, get on a better diet, do more exercise. I mean, it sounds like when you use these medications, it happens a lot quicker. The process is faster?
It's a lot faster, and you know, if you're doing it without doing exercise and all you're doing is really reducing your caloric intake, it's kind of like starving yourself, right? So your body starts breaking down muscle and fat both to try to get calories.
Wow.
As opposed to, let's say, somebody who's working on diet along with exercise. Now that exercise is keeping the muscles going, and hopefully you're going to lose less muscle mass in that.
And folks are using these medications for this purpose, to lose weight, obviously, and to better their BMIs. Well, let's talk about body mass index, because I've heard people say that the thing's it's a sham, don't go for it. Other people say it's a great barometer. What say you?
Yeah, so it's not perfect, right? It is basically just a formula that corrects your weight for your height. It's nothing more and nothing less than that. There are more sophisticated ways of looking at actual body composition. They're just not easily available. Anybody can calculate their body mass index with their height and a scale. And people who are very muscular, like let's say Olympic athletes, they're going to have a high BMI but be all muscle and all very healthy, right? So it's not perfect, but in general, it's not bad. And people do fixate on it a little bit because it's right there when you go to see your doctor.
Well, and they fixate it to the point where they want to get, it's like you get a hybrid or something. You want to get as many miles per gallon as you can. They want to take these medications to get as low a BMI as possible. But then, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't that necessitate another drug to get whatever the other drug is doing to mitigate that to a certain degree?
There are people looking at that. Or could you combine medications that would then reduce the muscle mass, and then maybe you just lose only fat mass? I think the challenge that I'm seeing in clinic is that it was different when somebody was 100 pounds overweight and they had a whole bunch of health conditions like diabetes and sleep apnea, and their knees are hurting, their back. It has been an amazing medication for people who are losing 60, 70 pounds when they were 100 pounds overweight. But I'm increasingly seeing people who would be considered normal weighted by their body mass index. And they're asking for these medications because they want to get even skinnier, right?
I was gonna say, isn't that interesting?
And then I think that's where I'm really worried that people are going to start losing good weight, muscle weight, things that that are really important, especially as a geriatrician, to good function.
Are there other side effects to these drugs?
Yeah, because of the GI effects of these medications, things like constipation, nausea are very, very common, and oftentimes the reason why people may stop the medications. Unfortunately, when you stop the medications, the weight tends to come back for almost all of my patients that I've seen.
Does it come back as quickly as it went away?
Yeah, about so.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's, a few patients are able to make the changes. Let's say if your knees hurt from having excess weight, now you're getting back to exercise, and they may now have made the lifestyle changes. But for the vast majority of patients, they gain the weight right back. And then the jury's out. Are you gaining fat back, or are you going to gain muscle and fat back? So
We got about 30 seconds left here. Does this make you think twice about prescribing these things?
it does, and I will prescribe them for people who have diabetes or who are very, very overweight, who have a BMI over, let's say, 35 or something like that. But if your body mass index is in reasonable range, really you should think about it twice. Ask your doctor. Don't go to any of these weight loss centers. Certainly don't get it from the person who's selling it from the sign on the side of the road that says, Ozempic, $200, call this number.
Please, holy smokes. All right, Dr. Amit Shah, Mayo Clinic, Arizona. This is fascinating stuff. Good information. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great to see you.